Welcome to the Begin Anew volunteer training. Thank you so much for expressing interest in volunteering with us. We're going to go through the video and I'll guide you through each slide. And then there will be a couple of links at the end for you to follow as a quiz and then an authorization page. So there are 3 sections. The first section is Introduction and History. Begin Anew. Our mission is to empower individuals to overcome obstacles created by poverty. And so the 3 ways that we do that is through adult education, through mentoring, and then other resources like Bible study and child care, meal provision, and any other kind of case management that we can offer. The scripture that guides our mission is 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. The students that are in our program are men and women from all different backgrounds and faiths, and they are age range from 19 to 56. Many of them are working, but they are not making a wage that is sustainable for them or their families. And they have many barriers, including their family history, their education or lack thereof, or other issues that are blocking their ability to overcome poverty. Our goal as a ministry is to help these men and women to obtain self-sufficiency, and we do that by providing education so that they can obtain employment, that they can be better trained for their jobs, that they may have child care and medical care and transportation that they need in order to sustain themselves. We have a variety of class times and sites that we offer to students, but the recommendation that we have for all students is that they are at class studying for at least 3 hours a week, 1 hour of Bible study, and 1 hour spent with their mentor. This is a really large commitment for someone who is in poverty to give that much time from their week, that they're committing to their education. And so we are, always impressed by them, and so, wowed by their commitment to do that. And we do have some attendance policies and tardy policies that we enforce. And since the program is free, that is the way that we make sure students are coming and that they attend regularly. We have a couple of different options for educational programming. So our largest program is the high school equivalency, formerly known as the GED. Our second largest program is English as a second language, followed by computer and job skills, and then literacy. Most of our literacy students are hoping to gain their high school equivalency, but do not currently have the reading skills they need in order to study for their GED, and so they start out in a literacy program with us as they progress. We also have some students who have their own individual goals, like gaining admission into a local community college, obtaining citizenship, obtaining their driver's license, and we will help students meet those goals as well if they agree to 3 hours of study, an hour of Bible study, an hour of mentoring. Begin Anew is affiliated with a national organization called Christian Women's Job Corps, and until 2016, we were called Christian Women's Job Corps of Middle Tennessee, and we changed our name to Begin Anew to reflect the hope and the new beginnings that many of our students feel they are committing to when they come to our programs, and also to expand our mission. Since we do serve men and women, we felt that the name would be more inclusive. But the Christian Women's Job Corps, there's around 200 sites across the nation and about 24 in Tennessee, and so we're glad to be a part of the WMU and to have our history in that founding in 1995. So as I was saying, CWJC began in Texas in 95, and the Women's Missionary Union of the Southern Baptist Convention was seeking an opportunity to share with women who were in need, who were needing to increase their education so that they could have a better wage to provide for their families. And so they created a job program, and that vision has grown since 1995 and it expanded into citizenship classes, English as a second language, computer skills, literacy, and of course high school equivalency. In 1996, the first 5 CWJC pilot projects were established, and in 97, we had a site open here in Nashville, and that was downtown serving women, and we are glad to say that that site is still functioning. We still have many women in the Nashville site. However, since that time in 1997, we have expanded into 6 different locations. So we're at First Baptist Church downtown. We also serve women in Madison at Madison Church of Christ. We serve men at Madison Long Hollow campus. And we serve men and women at Walker Memorial Baptist in Franklin. And we also have an ESL site in the Woodbine community at the church at Woodbine. There are lots of different ways that volunteers can be involved with us. So tutoring is the primary way that volunteers help. Because we are an educational program, we are always looking for tutors to come alongside our students, to study with them, to lead them as they are walking through the workbook. We provide curriculum for the tutors to use, but absolutely we have to have tutors in order for students to progress. We also have teachers who work with a class of students, so not just one-on-one or in small groups, but they're leading a class either in computer or job skills or one of our other curriculums. Prayer partners and mentor encouragers are very similar roles. The mentor encourager role is a bit more of a commitment. You're committing to 1 hour a week meeting with a student for an entire year. And the prayer partner is just commitment to calling or texting a student once a week. But the idea is the same in that it provides a listening relationship, someone who is supporting them, someone who is asking them what they need in order to meet their goals, being a friend. We also need childcare help. So a lot of our students would not be able to attend class if they did not have childcare provided. And so having a safe place for their children to be while the moms or dads are studying is really critical for their success in the program. We also always need help with administrative tasks. Our program directors have many responsibilities, and so it's very helpful for them to have help with those sorts of things, with greeting people as they come into the site, and to assisting with setting up the HiSET progress and making sure students are on track to take their exams. We also have some opportunities for volunteers to serve on a one-time basis, such as serving a meal on a class night. So volunteers will prepare a meal and bring it to the site to drop off for the students and their children so that they can eat and have community with each other and then not be hungry while they're trying to learn. It's a really big help to our students who are coming to class straight from work and maybe not getting home until 8:30 or later than that, and then having to worry about what is for dinner. So serving a meal is a great way to kind of visit the site, see how things are run, get familiar with the ministry, and serve our students. We also need help whenever we have newsletters to mail out or special events that we're going to have. If you have a special skill that you think would be of benefit to our students, like eating healthy or financial literacy, we often provide a one-time seminar on topics of interest for our students that we think would benefit them in the long run. So if you're interested in that and you have a particular topic that you want to share about, we'd love to have you do that. And again, like I was saying, we have some one-time opportunities. And these are more conducive to a group. So we have parties for our students at the end of the year to celebrate their accomplishments for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. And so if you want to help us put on one of those parties, that is a big help. If you want to have a group of people prepare a meal for our students and their children, if you want to help with graduation, we try to throw a shower for our students if they are going to have a baby or get married. Many of them don't have a community of their own that's doing anything like that for them, and so we want to be that supportive system in those exciting times in their lives. So in section 2, we'll be discussing poverty and culture and hopefully giving you some resources or frameworks of how to think about working with our students. So at Begin Anew, we define poverty as a difficulty in accessing some type of resource. So it's not just a financial situation. Of course, finances affect persons who are living in poverty, but it is also going to affect their emotions, their mental state, their relationships, their physical health. Lots of things are going to be affected if someone is living in poverty, and especially if someone grew up in generational poverty. And so we want to provide a holistic program, not just something that helps them financially by helping them find a better job, but really deals with the whole person so that they can be self-sufficient moving forward. So wealth and poverty are not only financial situations like we just talked about, but it also affects your relationships. So if we want to change poverty, if we want to help people who are living in poverty, we cannot just change their financial situation, but really change thinking. And so some things that change thinking are having a relationship with someone who is different from you. So this is part of the reason we provide a mentor to each student, so they have that social capital bridging relationship, someone who is not currently in poverty and may be able to provide additional resources or life experiences that would help that person change their thinking. We also know that emotional, personal experiences, either some sort of epiphany, like a spiritual awakening, that can really change your thinking if you have a new framework to think about the world. Education and employment also change thinking. We know that they allow you to access resources that you didn't have access to before, and that's going to help you move out of poverty and into financial security. There's a book called When Helping Hurts, and we get a lot of our understanding about poverty from that book, which focuses on a biblical understanding, so the theology of poverty. And we believe that in Genesis, the world was set up where we had 4 key relationships. So we had a relationship with God, with ourselves, with others, and then with creation. And in the Garden of Eden, when everything was perfect, all of those relationships were in perfect alignment as well. We understood that we were made in God's image, that we had a purpose for our lives, we had right relationship with one another, we had access to everything that we needed from creation, and we had access to God. We could talk to Him, go to Him about anything that we needed. But when sin entered the world, all of these relationships were broken. And so immediately there was a divide between man and God because of our sin. And we also have a divide with ourselves. So we have forgotten what our purpose is. We've forgotten our worth, that it comes from the Lord. And many times people are experiencing lives of shame. They have low self-esteem. And we definitely see that with our students, brokenness in their relationships with others. So we all know that people can use one another rather than support and care for each other. And so we know that's a result of sin as well. And then brokenness with our resources. So in a modern context, this looks like poverty, where we don't have access to the things that we need, to the skills and the education that we need, or to the financial things that we need. And Begin Anew is very interested in repairing these broken relationships in order to alleviate poverty. And so we want to repair the relationship that our students and that we have with God. And this is why we are unapologetically Christian, that we want to offer Bible study, because we know the power that education has for changing someone's life. But we know that the gospel has even more power for that. We also want to help them with their relationship with themselves, that they would feel encouraged and supported, that they would find their purpose in life. They would know that their worth doesn't come from their financial state or their job title, but it really comes from the Lord, and that they would have that self-esteem and that self-efficacy moving forward. We also want them to have positive relationships with each other, which is why we provide them with a mentor, and we want them to experience community when they're at Begin Anew. And relationship with creation. So we're hoping that the educational classes that they are offered through our program will increase their ability to obtain the job that they desire and have financial security for themselves and for their families. In the book, When Helping Hurts, it talks about having 3 different approaches to assistance. And Begin Anew takes a holistic approach in that we provide some services that could fall into any of these categories. So relief, the temporary emergency help to students, rehabilitation, so after the crisis, moving them forward, and then especially development, so working to empower them in order to become fully who God created them to be. Oftentimes, when people think of poverty, they think of those who are needy and deficient, that they are lacking in what they need. But we do not ascribe to this view of poverty. Instead, we take on the additive operating mental model, which is given to us through Ruby Payne's research in her book, Bridges Out of Poverty and What Every Church Member Should Know About Poverty. And the additive mental model is basically saying that in order to survive in poverty, individuals must have reactive, sensory, nonverbal skills. So another way of thinking about this is if you are growing up in generational poverty, if your household is in poverty, then the types of problems that you are seeing your parents solve are very concrete problems. And so figuring out transportation, food provision, these are concrete problems that have to be solved. And because of that need to solve immediate, concrete problems quickly, oftentimes there isn't the mental energy or the time to think about abstract problem solving, so to think long term, but it's more about solving the immediate needs. When individuals who have grown up in poverty encounter the middle class, they are often in a place of not having the abstract thinking skills that they need or the abstract problem solving skills that they need. And so we definitely don't want to think of our students as lacking. They have a lot of skills. They have tons of concrete problem solving skills, and so they bring that to the table. But in order to move into the middle class or wealth, so the world of work and school, we know that they are going to need those abstract, proactive verbal skills, and that's something that we want to provide for students. And the same is true for someone who is in the middle class. If someone who is in the middle class is moving into wealth or moving into poverty, then the types of skills that they are going to need are going to be different. And so we're not thinking of anybody as having deficit. We're thinking of people having a glass that is full. But in order to shift between socioeconomic classes, then there is additives that are needed, so different skills that they'll want to learn and to take on in order to be successful in that new socioeconomic class. So here are some questions about whether or not you could survive poverty, and you'll see these questions again in section 2, the Dig Deeper link at the end. And so feel free to come back to this point in the PowerPoint to go over these questions and look at them again. But these are some circumstances that someone who is living in poverty may experience, and so it may be some skills that they would have that someone who's living in a different socioeconomic class would not have. And then the quiz continues about whether or not you could survive in the middle class. So these are some types of skills or experiences that someone who grew up in the middle class may already have. And then could you survive in wealth? So again, some things that if you grew up in wealth that you may already know how to do. So as you're going through this quiz, if you will just click the check mark if you already know how to do that thing. So you wouldn't need to Google it, you wouldn't need to ask a friend or figure it out, but it's something that you're already familiar with, you would already know how to do, then you would just check that box. This is not a quiz to determine whether or not you get to volunteer. It's just a quiz to help you become more aware of your own circumstance, your own background, and to maybe develop some empathy about those who come from a different background than you. The hidden rules among the classes. So again, these are not, just like the Could You Survive quiz, these are not hard and fast rules about what people are like. What this means is these are just some general trends of behavior, so the hidden rules of behavior among different socioeconomic classes. And this can be used as a tool for helping you understand your students. So if they make a decision that doesn't make sense to you, it may be because of a different hidden rule that they're operating under. If they're late for class, or if they prioritize something outside of class, it can be very easy for someone in the middle class or wealth to assume that that means they don't care about their education or they're not invested. And these hidden rules, this graph, can help us understand it's likely a different priority. It may be coming from a different reason, but it's something that someone in the middle class might have a hard time understanding because they're operating with a different amount of resources under different hidden rules. Section 3, our policies and procedures. I'll just go through these with you, and then at the end you'll find a link where you can click to authorize your agreement with the policies and procedures. So if you would like to volunteer with Begin Anew, this just helps make sure that everyone has their paperwork filed and that we're all on the same page when we're walking onto site. Our statement of faith is fairly broad. We believe in the Word of God. We believe that it is authoritative in our lives, and so our entire statement of faith comes from Scripture. We started as a part of the WMU, which is a branch of the Southern Baptist Convention, but we have many volunteers who come from other denominations within the Christian faith, and so as our last statement reads, we believe in the unity of all believers. So please peruse this list, and if you feel that you can uphold these tenets as something that you also believe and can talk about with students if they have questions, then know that this is where we are coming from. Our ministry partner agreement just says, as a volunteer, you understand we will check your references, and if you would like to volunteer in our child care program or as a mentor, that we will also run a background check. You also assume all risk and liability when you're volunteering with us, and that you would hold harmless Begin Anew for anything that happened on site. You also have the right to terminate the relationship, and we also have that right. So at any time, if you no longer wish to volunteer, you are free to go, but of course we want you to stick around. And if for any reason we did not want you to volunteer anymore, we also have that right. And then making a pledge to good conduct so that you would obey all laws of the county, the state, the government, and that you would also behave in a way that is above reproach when interacting with our clients. The volunteer confidentiality agreement. So as a volunteer, you understand that anything a student shares with you you should maintain as confidential. You also should maintain that confidentiality beyond the end of your volunteer service. So if for any reason you leave Begin Anew and are no longer volunteering, we ask that you please keep any information about students confidential. If there's ever anything that is happening that you feel like you need assistance with, or you would benefit from the guidance of another person, you can of course share circumstances with other volunteers or with Begin Anew staff. And if something needs immediate attention or is of concern, if the student is in harm's way, then please feel empowered to contact the appropriate authorities. Our sexual abuse policy, this is just what we do at Begin Anew in order to mitigate the risk of sexual abuse. So this is why we have all volunteers complete an application, why we ask you to submit a character reference, why we do background checks for any volunteer who's going to be alone with students or their children. And we also want to have an in-person interview with all volunteers. If you suspect or witness anything on site, please report it to the program director. We are making a commitment to investigate anything to the fullest extent, and if needed, also feel empowered to contact local authorities. Financial assistance for students. We do not want you to provide financial assistance. If you feel particularly burdened for a student, you may make a donation anonymously through the program, but we don't want you to provide financial assistance directly. We think that this harms your relationship with the student, and it changes their expectations of you as a volunteer and also of the ministry. It also harms your relationship with all the other students who did not receive that financial benefit, and so we ask that you please refrain from doing that. The same is for transportation. We do not have an insurance policy that covers liability from providing rides to students in staff or volunteer cars. So if there is an instance where you want to provide transportation for a student, understand that you are taking on that liability, and that anything that happened would have to be covered under your insurance policy, which is why we strongly discourage you from doing that. If there ever is a time where we ask you to volunteer your car to transport a student, then we would have a photocopy of your driver's license and your insurance on file to make sure that you are covered. But that is a very rare thing to happen. So just as a general rule, we ask that you please not provide transportation. Our solicitation agreement applies to all of our students, all of our volunteers, and our employees. So please do not pass out any materials that would solicit them attending an event or purchasing any sort of product or service. We do this to protect you, and we also do this to protect our students. We want for class time to be reserved for class and not for any other purpose. And so we ask that if you have an announcement that you would like to make or something that you're interested in communicating to the students that is not Begin Anew business, that you would please put it on our bulletin board with permission of the program director, and anything else that is related to Begin Anew business, of course you're free to talk about, but that class time would just be protected from any other solicitation. And this concludes our volunteer training. So the last step for you is to follow the link to the quiz and to the Dig Deeper and then to the authorization page to sign that you agree and that you are ready to volunteer. Thank you.